This is for you. Patrick. David Rose, you bought the general store.
Leased the general store, yeah.
It's a big deal.
Is it?
Yeah, it's pretty big. Hey, you want to have a seat?
Your parents tell me you're very sporty, so Will, why don't you grab the paddle and Teresa, badminton racket?
So, why don't we start with the name of the business?
Oh, I'm oscillating between two names at the moment, so if we could just leave that one blank, that would be great.
Okay,
Sure.
We like each other.
Give you more time to oscillate. Business address.
Okay, so I'm working on that. I'm currently staying in a motel, and I think it might be confusing if I gave you the address to another business.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, look at her.
We'll leave that blank as well.
Look at me. Okay, look at her and look at
Batting 1,000 here, David.
I don't know what that means.
Hey, here's an easy one. Brief description of the business.
Well, it's a general store, but it's also a very specific store.
Huh.
And it's also not just a store. It's like a place where people can come and get coffee or drinks, but it's not a coffee shop, nor is it a bar.
Okay, so we're pretty clear on what it's not.
Yeah, it's an environment, and yes, we will be selling things, but it's more like a branded, immersive experience.
Right. I love the buzzwords, David, but I do need to put something down here.
Okay, you couldn't use anything I just said?
Tell you what, why don't you take these home with you and just fill them out when you have a clearer idea of what you want to do with your business.
Okay, I do have a clear idea.
Oh, you've settled on a name then.
You're either very impatient or extremely sure of yourself.
Threw you a bit of a change up there, huh?
Yeah, again, I don't know what that means. I don't play cricket.
Look, take this. It's my card, and I feel like you will need it.
You know what? I think I'm good. So thank you for this.
It's nice to meet you, David.
Yeah.
Any Schitt's Creek fans here? Any small business owners here? Yeah. Any entrepreneurs here? Anybody going, I don't know, I'm just still thinking about it? A few of those too. Okay, all right, that's right, that's fine. Being an entrepreneur is more of a mindset than anything, so if you're thinking about it, then you probably are an entrepreneur, whether or not you have an LLC or not. I always tell people an LLC does not a business make. It's simply a piece of paper. What makes your business is customers. So we're going to talk a little bit. I'm Joel Barrett. I work for the Missouri Small Business Development Center, and I am a senior business development consultant at the center, which means I help people in my role with starting and growing their businesses. I have been at the center for about 7 years and coach. I literally have about 1,000 entrepreneurs on my coaching roster. Thankfully, they don't all need help at the same time, but they are on there. And I also am a business owner myself, and I'll tell you a little bit about more of that as I go. But I wanted to at least give you a little prep. How many businesses have I started so far? The answer is 5. Now, you may be going, wow, that's impressive. I just want you to know, don't be too impressed, because they have not all been 5-star businesses. In fact, many of them have been 0-star businesses. So yes, it sounds so impressive, but I'm not here to impress. I'm here to tell you what I've learned and some of the things that I wish I had known before I tried starting some of those businesses. So we're gonna go and walk through some of my life. And it all started in the 1970s when this little guy began thinking like an entrepreneur, believe it or not. I was about 10 or 11 years old in this photo. And this was my favorite photo growing up because the shirt was like this silky, I don't even know what, polyester probably. But man, I felt good in it, and I liked that picture of myself. And I was born here in Kansas City, but I didn't grow up here. My family moved away from here when I was about 4 years old, so I have very few memories of living in Kansas City. And we moved from there to St. Louis, from here to St. Louis. And then eventually from St. Louis, we moved to the glorious place called Effingham, Illinois. I don't know why you're laughing. Is glorious, yes. That was before the word effing really meant anything, but later in life, people started laughing every time I said I was from Effingham, and I had to finally realize, oh, that's why. So when we were living in St. Louis, though, I remember there being a bank. I don't even know if it's still around, but there was a bank called Boatman's Bank in St. Louis. And Boatman's Bank I'd be driving around the car with my mom, and the commercial would come on, something for Boatman's Bank. And it was around this time period, if that says anything to you. And I remember they would advertise whatever services they were trying to advertise for the bank. And then at the end, there was a little tagline theme song that would come on. And it was a voice, I don't remember if it was a man or a woman, and they would say, Boatman's Bank, there's a better way. And as a kid, I was like, there's a better way. I like that. And it literally, I consider that the seed that was planted in my head about entrepreneurship, where I started going, there's a better way to do things. Whatever it was, I didn't care about banking. It didn't mean anything to me about banking, but I just liked the idea that you would take something and go, maybe there's a better way to do this. And that's literally when little Joel started becoming an entrepreneur. And it wasn't too long after that, when we moved to Effingham, Illinois, that I started my first business. Want to see what it was? It was Joel's Lawn Mowing. They didn't actually have a name. I was a kid with a lawnmower. And I had the distinct fortune of living on a street where I was like the only kid on the street. It was a long street, Franklin Avenue. And for some reason, I guess it had been the place to be. People had raised their families. Husbands had died, and it literally was lined with a lot of women who were widows that didn't have a husband, and they had yards. And so one would say, hey, would you mow my grass for me? Sure, I'll mow your grass. And so I took the lawnmower and I started mowing their grass, and then another one would say, who's that little boy mowing your grass? Can he mow my grass too? And slowly, it started growing where more and more people, and I ended up mowing almost every lawn on that street. I think I was mowing somewhere between 12 and 24 lawns a week. And I started a business. But I didn't know I'd started a business. I was just a kid with a lawnmower. I just knew I enjoyed helping solve the problem of these ladies getting their grass mowed. And so I would do it. And then decades later, when I came to the Missouri Small Business Development Center as a client for help with my own different business that you'll learn about, I learned that actually what I was doing then was an actual business. And I want to talk to you about what a business is. My colleague, Rebecca Goebbels, has the gift of making complex things simple. Unlike my ex-wife, who had the gift of making simple things complex. And so Rebecca has made this statement about a business. You'll see, you could read textbooks, you can Google definitions of a business, and you're going to see all kinds of stuff. But I don't know of one better than this. And it's simply this. A business is a repeatable process of solving problems for other people that they view to be big enough problems that they'll change their planned use of time and money and give it to you instead. That's a lot of words, so let's break it down. A business is a repeatable process. In other words, you have to be able to do it over and over again. So, if this week, a friend of mine, let's say my friend Jeff here, says, hey, I'm moving this week, and would you come and help me move? And I'm stupid enough to say yes. And I go help Jeff move, and he's like, thank you, and he hands me $20 for your help. Does that make me a mover? No, it just makes me a foolish friend who agreed to do a lot of hard work for $20. However, if I were to say, you know what, that wasn't too bad, actually. I wonder if there are other people that need help moving. Maybe if I got a truck, or maybe if I got a dolly, or I got these things and I started actually volunteering to help people, now it's something where I'm repeating that process. So a business has to be something that you can do repeatedly if it's going to be a business. And then it has to be a repeatable process of solving problems. This is where a lot of people get stuck because they don't think about the fact that they're actually solving a problem. Every business that exists solves some kind of problem. And the moment it stops solving a problem, guess what? It goes out of business. It has to be solving a problem. Now, Sometimes when that word problem comes up, we start thinking, oh, problems like world peace. No, it doesn't have to be world peace. Literally, a problem can be, where am I going to have lunch today? And I didn't bring a lunch. I don't remember if there's a lunch being served here. I know there are restaurants here. So I'm like, at this moment, I'll probably go home and eat some leftovers and then come back. However, if I walk out of here, I think I've solved my problem, right? I'm going to take some time. I'm going to miss some of this. I'm going to go home. I don't live far from here. And I'm going to eat my lunch and come back. However, let's say that's my intention. And then I walk outside in front of Union Station and there's this amazing taco truck sitting there. And I go, oh, I had thought about going home. But now that I see this taco truck, I might just have tacos here at Union Station. Stick around. See what they've done? They've solved a problem for me, and it has changed my planned use of my time and my money. And I'm like, I think I'm going to give it to them. So that's what a business is. It also, besides solving problems, it has to be other people's problems, not just your problem. And sometimes people get stuck in this. They go, oh, I learned something, and now I want everybody else to learn the same thing. Or I solved a problem for myself, and I think it's everybody else's problem. That's where you have to go out and test and find out. You can't just operate on the assumption, because it needs to be other people's problems. Because if it's just your problem, and then there aren't enough people with the same problem, again, you're going to be out of business. It also has to be a problem that people view to be big enough problems. And the way I like to think about that is the difference between a headache and a migraine. If you have this morning a headache, just your average, everyday, run-of-the-mill headache, where you woke up, maybe you didn't sleep well, maybe you got a little crook in your neck or something, but you got a little bit of a headache. And you're like, but it's not like stopping you from functioning, you're just kind of like, yeah, I got a headache. What might you do about that? Wait, what did you say? Take ibuprofen or aspirin or something like that. What else? Drink some water. Rest. Ignore it. I'm so glad you said that, because one of the ways people solve their problems is by doing nothing at all. So that's also part of your competition, is the people who say, it's a headache, I don't care about that, I will just keep on functioning. Now, let's say if you've ever had a migraine, or you've known somebody that had a migraine, for HIPAA reasons, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. If you've had a migraine or know about it, you know that people treat that a little differently than that achy headache, right? What happens when people have a migraine? What do? Turn off the lights. No sounds.
Reach for prescribed medication.
Yes, give me drugs now. All right, but you see what happens when you have a migraine, life stops. You're like, put me in a dark room with no sound, give me drugs, whatever you have to do. A migraine is a big problem. So it doesn't mean that headaches aren't a problem and only migraines are. We still sell aspirin, right? $2 a bottle or something. So you can still solve the problem of headaches, but the closer you get to that migraine problem, that's when people go, I want that. Because the migraine is something I need solved immediately. So a business is a repeatable process of solving problems for other people that those people view to be big enough problems that they'll change their planned use of time and money, which I talked about with the taco truck, and instead of doing what they intended to do, they're going to give it to you. And now you have a business. Fast forward many years later, in my 30s, my second business, I was a Baptist minister. You're like, I know it's hard to believe that this 6'5", very tall, very gay man was once a Baptist preacher, but I was, it's true. And this was my second business venture. And you may be going, wait a minute, a church isn't a business. Tell Joel Osteen that. I didn't know it then, but I was essentially starting a business. Very similar. Now that I work with entrepreneurs, I'm like, oh, that's what I was doing. Because I moved to a brand new area where I didn't know anybody. And I'm like, well, we're going to start a church. How do I go about doing that? I'm thankful now to know that I actually did it right. But I didn't know at that time anything about something called the startup loop of despair. What is the startup loop of despair? It's an amazing principle that's from this book that everybody in this room should buy this book and read it. It is the #1 book that I recommend to all of my clients, and it's written by Diana Kander, who is a Kansas Citian. And it's amazing. The really good thing about it is it's written in story form, and it's a bit of a spicy story where you're like, ooh, I don't know if I'm supposed to be reading this. But all's well that ends well, and you learn so much from it. But in it, she talks about the startup loop of despair. And this is how most of us have been taught to start a business. I got a good idea. I got a great idea. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to build it, and I'm going to get a website and brand it, and nice logo. And then I'm going to open the doors and go, okay, y'all, come buy it. And then when they don't come, you go, oh, I really thought this was a good idea. I thought people really wanted this. And so then we go, well, I know what I need to do. I need to tweak this idea a little bit. And we go back to the beginning and we go, let me tweak this idea. Let me add some features. Let me do something different or add another product to it. And then we build it, we brand it, and we open our doors and people still don't come. And we go, oh, well, maybe it's a different idea. And we go, so you see what's happening? We're going through this loop repeatedly. And it's called the startup loop of despair because it rarely ever works when it comes to starting a business. So that's my good news for you. We're done. No. So there is an answer. There is a very simple solution to this that Diana Kander has in her book, and it's this. I have a great idea. Let me go see if anybody else cares. And then once I've found out that people care about my idea that I love so much, because it's my baby. Don't you tell me my baby's ugly. Customers will. They will tell you your baby's ugly by not showing up. So I have an idea. Let me go find out if people care by doing small experiments and interviews and surveys and test markets and market research and customer discovery, all of those kinds of things. And then once I found out that people actually really like this concept, then I can build it. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to build it smarter, because I'm building it based on what I've learned by talking to customers. And then I'm going to brand it. Guess what? I'm going to brand it smarter because I already know what people are interested in. So I'm going to make my branding match that. So you see how much more intelligent that is? And yet, the reason we do that startup loop of despair is because that's really how most of us have been taught to start a business. And so we've been set up for failure by doing that. So I would encourage you to read the book and think about this concept. So when I started the church, I went to a brand new area. I knew nobody. It was in South Bend, Indiana. And I went to that area. I went to the Chamber of Commerce, I think it was at that time, and I was like, tell me about this community. And what's the population? What's the demographics? And then I started eventually, once I had an idea of like, okay, I think this is the place for me, I put a little ad in the newspaper because this was before the internet. And the ad newspaper says, hey, there's these informational meetings coming about a new church that's starting. And my goal was to have 10 informational meetings to try to get 10 families that would say, I like where your head's at, we want to be a part of this. So that by the end of 10 weeks, I'd have 10 families, and then together, we would work towards actually having public services. And it worked. At the end of 10 weeks, I had 10 families that said, we want to get on board. And then we started promoting the first public service. My goal was to have 100 people at our first public service, which was kind of an ambitious goal, but I was like, I think we can do this. And we started going around and telling the community, and guess what? We had 100 people at our first public service. So I look back now and I realize I didn't know what I was doing at all. But I was avoiding the startup loop of despair because I was taking time to go out, find out what people wanted, see if people are interested, offering them, is doing interviews, surveys, small experiments, and it worked. All right, a little bit later, after getting out of ministry, I found myself in a very kind of lost space because having been a Baptist minister for many years and now a newly out man, I found that I no longer belonged in my world. And I had no contacts. I had no network. And so I decided, well, one thing I'm good at is I'm good with people. I'll start a coaching business, like a life coaching business. And so I did. I thought I'd use my ministry experience to start a life coaching business. And here's what I did. I was like, I'm here. Y'all come now. What I did is I heard if you build it, they will come. The truth is, I built it, they didn't come. They didn't know who I was. I didn't know anybody. Nobody knew I had this business. But I believed the field of dreams that if I just did it, somehow people would come and take advantage of this. And so I didn't know in advance that it doesn't work that way. Just because you open your doors, you hang an open sign out, doesn't mean people suddenly magically appear. But oftentimes, again, we've been trained to do that. I thought it was a good idea. Thought everybody else would think it was a good idea. But I didn't have the most important part of business. What is that? Customers! Without customers, you're out of business. So I didn't have any. So that was one of my failed business ventures where I quickly learned, nobody cares about this. Nobody cares about me. Nobody knows me. And so I stopped doing that. But I didn't stop thinking about building businesses because I was reforming life and trying to figure out what my next part of life would be after ministry. And so I was working a lot of odd jobs and always thinking, maybe I could do something myself. And I started working, I started noticing at that time, South Bend, Indiana, the downtown district was in a real revival. Renaissance, so to speak. Mayor Pete Buttigieg was our mayor, and things were just really exciting down there. So there were a lot of small businesses starting downtown, and I would go visit these businesses, and I do have the gift as a visionary. Like I walk into these kinds of places and I go, I tell you, this is great, but if you would do 1, 2, 3 things, it would change everything. And so I started doing that. It's just something I do. It's that better way philosophy that comes back from when I was a 10-year-old kid. So I walk into environments and I'm like, this is good, but there's a better way to do this. And so I thought, you know what, these small business owners, they really need help. They need help with their customer service, with their, just the way they present. And a lot of it was customer service. And I was like, I've got it. I'm going to start a business for small business owners. I'm going to help them with their business. I'm going to help them with their customer service. I can come in and do training for them. And I was really excited about this because I also met all of these small business owners and they were like, oh yeah, we need so much help. And so they were excited about the possibility of having help. But what I didn't know is that a need isn't necessarily the same thing as a market. Because those small businesses, they don't got no money. They wanted my help. They wanted my expertise, but they weren't going to pay me. And so what I started finding out is that I did identify a real need, but there was no money there. And so that's one of the lessons I learned in yet another failed business that, okay, just because I've observed a need doesn't mean the need is the same thing as a market. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to 2016. My husband and I, where's my husband? There he is over there in the pink jacket. Moved to Kansas City, Missouri. And I didn't know anything about Kansas City. Yes, I was born here, but I didn't grow up here. So it was like a brand new city. And I remember telling him when his job was leading us here, I said, well, Kansas City, wow. I guess I'm going to have to get a Carhartt jacket and some cowboy boots if I'm going to fit in there. That was my perception of Kansas City because I didn't know anything about Kansas. Neither one of us did. And but during that time, I had toyed around with starting yet another business called Joel Speaks Out. And so when we came to Kansas City, it was kind of an opportunity to start afresh. So we got here, we quickly learned Kansas City you don't have to have a Carhartt jacket and cowboy boots to fit in here. We realized it's a great city, we love it here, it's been very exciting. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna start my own business. Now, I'm going to get really serious about it. And so one of the things I did is I joined the Mid-America LGBT Chamber of Commerce that is here today and sponsored this event. And I started meeting a lot of people through that. And then I was talking to someone and was like, well, I'm starting this business, but I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. I don't know. I think I'm doing it right. And then somebody said, oh, well, you need a business plan. And somebody else was like, oh, well, you need to do this. And I'm hearing all this. I'm like, I don't know. How am I supposed to do this? And somebody said, you should talk to the Missouri Small Business Development Center because they have classes and things. So I'm like, okay, sounds good. So I contacted the Missouri Small Business Development Center and I enrolled in a class that at that time, well, it doesn't matter. It essentially is called New Venture. And it was an opportunity, 5 Tuesdays in a row, to kind of just get all of the knowledge that you need to start your business and all of the tools and resources and things. And I went through that class and I was like, this is amazing. It was so helpful to me. And at the end of the class, my colleague Rebecca, who wrote the definition of a business, said, you're kind of good at this. Would you be interested in doing some contract work for the center? I'm like, sure. So in a sense, one of my first, second, third clients was the SBDC. And I started contract coaching for the center, just a few hours. And then that kept evolving. And today I'm actually working there full time. But I also started Joel Speaks Out, where I'm an LGBTQ author, speaker, a gatherer, because I'm good at bringing people together and creating community. And that business still runs today. I still do a lot of public speaking. I've written my memoir. I've written a couple of different books. I do a lot through Joel Speaks Out, including in 2023, I launched the KC Rainbow Tour, which is a self-guided driving tour of Kansas City's very rich LGBTQ history. And so that's kind of a second venture underneath Joel Speaks Out. I served on the board of the chamber for, that reminds me, I think my ringer's still on. I served on the board of the chamber, and then I started contracting with the center until I became an employee. What I didn't know at that time is that I needed to let go of all of my business ideals and just absorb new information to help me go, oh. Because a lot of people will say, well, the first thing you need is a business plan. And you would think that as an employee of the Missouri Small Business Development Center, I would say, that's right. Actually, it's not for me. I don't encourage people to start with a business plan. I'm not saying a business plan isn't important, but it's kind of like writing the book report without having read the book. You got to read the book. You got to get out there and do something and start finding out how people respond. And guess what? That will inform your business plan. And the business plan can be really, really helpful. And if you're going to go talk to anybody about support, money, lending, you're going to need a business plan. Sometimes you'll need it for renting a space. But I realized that I didn't know in advance, but I learned that if I had stopped to write my business plan, I probably would have never started my business. Because business plans are kind of a pain to write. And so I let go of my ideals and I started taking some small steps, and I learned this principle, even though I didn't know it before, and that is start small and let the market invite you to grow. I didn't have to go out and build some giant thing. I just was like, okay, I'm finding out some people. I started getting my name out there. I got a few speaking opportunities. I got some opportunities to write, some different things I wrote for a local publication here. I was just doing little things. And those little things kept leading into more because people are like, hey, this guy's good. Let's have him, so on and so forth. And so the market started inviting me to grow. And in the beginning, I didn't even have a decent website. You know, I had homemade business cards and stuff like that. But so many times we let those kinds of things stop us because we go, oh, I need to have this very polished official thing. No, you don't. You just need customers. Go get some customers. And the more customers you get, they'll fund your website. They'll fund your graphics and your logo and your design. If you start there, you probably are not going to actually end up starting a business. So, as a result of that class, I not only learned from it, but I was asked to start contracting with the center, evolved to be where I am today. And today I work for the SBDC, where we help people start grow, sometimes exit their business. We do that through three primary ways, one of which is one-on-one coaching. Listen to this, that's always available to you at no cost to you. No cost to you. Just take advantage of that. We also do that through a wide array of group learning opportunities. We have classes and trainings for all stages of business on all kinds of topics. And we are good at getting you connected to the resources that you need in your community. All right, little exercise. Today's your lucky day. I want to give each of you $40,000. Not really. To help you start your business. $40,000 today. You like that? You don't seem very excited about it. Everybody's like, All right, 40 grand. There's only one string attached. You can't just say, great, I'm going on vacation, see ya. No, it's got to be something concerning your business that you're like, this is what I'm going to do. If you don't have a business, it might be your business idea. But what are you going to do with that $40,000? Think about it right now. Think, what would I do with $40,000 from a business if I had it right now? Everybody got something? Got a little something? Do I have a brave soul or two that might share what they are going to do with their $40,000? Anybody? Anybody? All right. R&D. R&D. What's that stand for? Research and development. Okay.
3 categories: give, save, spend.
Give, save, spend. Anybody else?
I would sign up with a couple of versions, one especially for social media content and for a lot of
What's the last part?
lead gen.
Okay, lead generation. How about there? All right. I really like this crowd. Y'all give really good answers. So, better than any time I've ever done this exercise, I would say. So give yourself a round of applause for that. You're smart, all right? Typically what happens when I ask that question is people start immediately thinking about what they can spend it on, what they're going to use it for, and like, I'm going to get my sign, I'm going to build my website, I'm going to go rent that space that I've always wanted, and it becomes this building thing. You all were far above average because you talked about things to see, does anybody actually care? So I often say this, that one of the worst things you can give an entrepreneur or an entrepreneurial idea is money. I know you're like, what? Blasphemy. I know. We're sitting here at this Global Entrepreneurship Week. Are we supposed to get money? All right. The reason I say that is not to say that entrepreneurs don't ever need money. But in the beginning, when you have this idea, what normally happens, human behavior is, I give you 40 grand, and you go, great, I don't have to think about customers anymore. I don't have to think about the problem that I'm solving. I'm just going to go build my solution. And then they'll come, right? We learned that from Field of Dreams. If I build it, they will come. And so what happens is we check out of the problem solving and we just go right into the solution building aspect of it. You might wonder, well, let me go here. Once you think about this, you're walking down the sidewalk. Let's say we're out here. And after this, and you find a piece of a puzzle on the floor. And you go, oh, look at this. I found the solution. I've got it right here. Somewhere in the world, there's a puzzle missing this piece. Now all I have to do is go find that puzzle and sell them this piece. This is a great business venture. Think about it the opposite way. What if instead you said, instead of me being a solution going around looking for a problem, what if I was looking for a problem that needs a solution? I wonder how many puzzles out there are actually missing a piece. I wonder if I could create puzzle pieces for those puzzles so that people would go, great, finally I can finish this puzzle. You've made the piece right. I might be onto a business. You see the difference though? Instead of a solution going around looking for a problem, you're like going, there's a problem, I think I could solve that. That's the difference. And oftentimes when I give people 40 grand like that, they immediately go into the solution building instead of the problem solving. Why 40 grand? Where did I get that number at? I don't know what it is about 40 grand, but I've had at least 3 clients who have spent $40,000 each before ever finding out if anybody cared about their idea. And then they've come to me and go, I did all this stuff and I'm not getting business. What do I do? I need more marketing. You can't market your way out of something that nobody cares about. All the marketing in the world is not going to change that. And so I've had a lot of people too many people spend $40,000. So that's where I came up with that. I'm not going to tell you all the horror stories of it, but it's been frustrating to have some people that spend way too much money creating solutions for which nobody really has the problem or doesn't care about the problem enough. So I want to remind you of the startup loop of despair, how to avoid it, get the book, read it. One more thing I wish I'd known before I started a business, and that is that I was not alone. I didn't have to do this all by myself. I thought I did. I thought nobody could understand my business like me. So I need to do all these things myself. And I need to be the marketer. I need to be the designer. I need to be the creator. I need to be the financial person. I need to be, and the list just went on and on and on. And some of those things I really hate. I don't like that stuff. I don't want to do bookkeeping and accounting. No. But I thought I had to. But what I didn't know is that I was not alone. And I want to say to you this morning, you aren't either, because we're in Kansas City, Missouri. This is one of the most resource-rich communities for entrepreneurship and small business that you'll find in the United States. You realize Casey SourceLink, who is putting on this event today, Casey SourceLink has over, I think it's 220 organizations in their database that are dedicated to some portion of entrepreneurship. 220. If you can't find a resource here, you're not going to find one anywhere. And if you have trouble finding them, guess what? You can come to us and we'll help you find them. Or you can go to Casey SourceLink and find them. But you're not alone. You don't have to do everything yourself. And that was something I wish I had known when I started, that I didn't have to be good at everything. I could actually get help. I could hire help. Let me ask you, if you would like more information like this presentation, we have a great class coming up called Proof to Profit. It's based on some of the principles of the All-In Startup. There's a really fantastic instructor. He's seen today wearing a bright green jacket. And he will be teaching that class. It's virtual, so you don't have to even get out of your car and go somewhere, get in your car and go somewhere. So I encourage you to look at that. I hope that QR code shows up well enough on here. If not, you can always go to our website. I've had a lot of great clients over the years at the center, and I'm really happy when I drive down the street and I go, oh, that's a client of mine. That's a client of the center. Or I go in and do business. I've had some clients that, like the 3 that spent $40,000, by the way, none of which are doing their thing because they ran out of money. I've had some frustrations. I've had some people that I'm like, man, I wish you'd come to me first. But I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about sad stories. I want to end this presentation, and then if we still have time, I have no clue what time it is or anything. So what is it? 9:15. We started at 8:30, so we'll have time for a few questions if you have. But I want to end with a positive note, and I want to introduce you to some of our clients at the Missouri Small Business Development Center. So those are just a very few people, but let's give a hand to those that started our businesses. I think I have a little time. If you have a question, yes. Yes, yes, yeah. We also can work with people across the border, so feel free to look into that. And there's also a really great Kansas SBDC. All SBDCs are different, so we all offer different things and different styles, but we aren't afraid to help Kansans. Yes.
What is the most common question people arrive at SBDC to solve?
Where do I get money? That's probably the most common question. Is like, how do I get money? It's like, I got this great idea. Who's going to give me money for it? And so then that's a process of saying, well, first, let's find out if there are customers that care about it. And then maybe we'll get to that money portion. But the truth is, you don't need much money to test your assumptions. I can do interviews, surveys, small experiments, research. I can do all of that pretty much for free. So I don't need money first. That's why I say one of the worst things you can give an entrepreneur is money.
Is that good for creating like a review process for new products?
Yes. The principle, she asked if this was class, proof to profit was good for like proving products. This is a broad overview of it, but in a sense, no matter what you're creating, whether it's technology, whether it's a service, whether it's a product, no matter what it is, it still boils down to, does anybody actually care about it? Will people use this? Do they want it? Is it solving a problem? So that process really is the same for anybody. It starts branching out from there according to what you're doing, but the process of figuring out, like in our industry, you'll hear the term value proposition. Sounds really, what is your value proposition? Sounds really official, doesn't it? I hate that kind of language. You know what a value proposition is? It's, does anybody care? That's really what it is. I don't know why we have to formulate these giant terms that sound impressive when it really boils down to, I've got an idea, does anybody actually care about my idea? And if they care, how much do they care? And how many of them care? And then maybe I can go build it, brand it, and now I know that people actually have shown me that they care. Any other questions?
Can you give some examples of how you move about and kind of get the customer surveys or talking to customers? Some handful of you're new to a community, you don't have where to start. What is that?
I'll give you an example of one of my $40,000 clients. Thought they were solving a problem for tall people like me. And the difficulty of getting clothing for tall people like me. And I was like, okay, cool. So they had this concept. And I was like, you know, what's really great is for you doing research is extremely easy. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to spend the next 6 weeks or whatever. And every time you see a tall person, you say, where do you get your clothes? How do you buy it? Do you buy them online? Buy them in person? What's the motivating factor? Is it price? Is it convenience? Is it quality? And you just come up with a set of questions. Now you'll notice I did not say, if I built this thing, would you come and buy from me? Whenever we start using, and this is a principle from Diana Kander in the All-In Startup, whenever we start using any question that starts with would you, people check out of what they're currently doing and go into speculative mode. And they go, oh, yeah, I probably would. Sure, why not? But a better source of data is to say, Joel, where do you get your clothes? Because now you're learning what my actual behavior is. And the best indicator of what I'm about to do is going to be what I've already done. So things like that, you formulate some questions, you ask. You can do surveys. In-person questions are always the best because they give you an answer, and guess what? You have another question, and you go, oh, now that you've told me that, let me ask you this. But surveys are also good. You just don't get the opportunity to ask the follow-up question. And then small experiments. Let's say you want to start a bakery. And so I would say, well, amongst those other things, you might want to get a little stand at the farmer's market or one of these things and actually have your baked goods out there and see if people like them. Ask them what they like about them. Give some samples, you know. And then interviews, surveys, small experiments. I'm missing one. I always miss one. What am I missing, Jill? Do you remember? Interviews, surveys, small experiments. There's another one, but I've doing research. Oh, yeah, go look at your competition. Find out. I've had people that have said, oh, I have no competition. I'm like, well, let me do a little Google search. It's magical. And look, you do. Now, go visit them. Go find out who's there, who's not there, what's on sale, what's not on sale, what's on clearance. Go find this out. What kind of cars are in the parking lot? When are they busy? Day, night? So those are all simple ways of just getting out there. It's time consuming. And it feels like, but I just want to go rent my store and put a sign out and all this stuff. But boy, that is so much more costly if you don't know if anybody cares. Long, somewhat decent answer to that question. Let's see what time it is. Yes, one more.
Okay, so Joe and Noah, and what is a great deal about it? You've got non-service, administration, architecture, and you're essentially doing for strangers telling us how to do this thing. Wow.
Why?
Why are you doing it?
Why do I do this? That's a great question. Because there is a better way, and I like people helping find it. Helping people find it. There we go. Finding, helping people, whatever it is. I like helping people find the better way. One thing I've learned about myself is in order to be happy in what I do, I have to be able to be working with people, helping people. That's very important to me. And I need to be able to be creative and have the freedom to create and make things better. So this job, I know you can't tell us, but I like being in front of people. So this job allows me to do all of those things. It's very rewarding, as I mentioned in the beginning, to be driving down the street and go, oh, that's client. Oh, yep, I met with them. Oh yeah, we helped them. And they aren't all my clients. They can just be clients of the center, but I know a lot of the stories and I go, that feels so good. And it feels good for me to go out and spend money with people that I know have started their own business. And I look around this room. How many of you in this room have taken advantage of some service of the Missouri Small Business Development Center? Look at all that. That's a lot. I love it. And I know so many people in this room is like, oh yeah, I know what they do. And we've helped them. All right, and one more, right there.
Say I have done my research and I found my customers and they want the product now. If I start building them and I take a year and a half, they may have moved and gone elsewhere. So how do I match this building at the time so that my customers do not sweat? Or is that not even a good idea at all?
Well, if you find a group of customers that like the problem you're solving for them, and then they all leave and there are no more people that need that problem solved, then it probably wasn't a big enough idea. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the tall man. By the way, that guy, I told him, I was like, oh, by the way, you're welcome to interview me. Do you think he did? Never once asked me a single question about where I get my clothes. It goes back to that, is it a headache or a migraine, and is it a big enough problem? If you're solving a problem for a group of people, there should be more than just that group of people. So I suspect, and I don't know what your idea is, I have a feeling it's something tech related. Yes. So, here's my advice to you. Call the SBDC and make an appointment with Mark or Julie. Because that's what they do. They help you with that very thing. And yes, tech is its own little animal in some ways, and there are things to consider, and that's why I don't work with tech. I send them to Mark and Julie, and they work with tech, but they know how to help you with that. All right, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do at this point. I just know that I'm done. And And it's a big entrepreneurial world out there. Go take advantage of resources, get to know one another. Say thank you to the Chamber and our wonderful hosts that have provided food and drink. And don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.